world. But to change the world in a way that means anything, it's slow, it's methodical. It's happening, it's happening, it's happening.
Welcome to 2-Bit Encryption, the officially unofficial podcast for Mr. Robot on USA. I'm Jim.
I'm a.ron.
And we're back to talk one last time about Mr. Robot for episodes 412 and 413, titled Who Am I and Hello Elliot, respectively. a.ron, it's the last time I'm going to ask you this for this show. What do you think of these episodes?
It's very complicated because while I was watching them, I really liked the first episode, and then I got like through the like 30 minutes into the second part of the finale, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know this, this is, and then it kind of like recovered at the 30-minute part, and I decided that, like, after I watched it the first time, I didn't read anybody's opinions or thoughts. I'm like, I think this is a good finale, and this is a great show. But it didn't. This finale didn't like elevate or like increase my enjoyment of the show. It was just a nice little kind of like bookend to it. Mm-hmm. And as I was watching it again, and then I actually went and started looking at other people's opinions, I keep going back and forth. Like, sometimes I'll look at the finale from a certain thing and I'll think, oh man, it did that really, really brilliantly. And then some others I think like, wait a second, that doesn't really answer anything. And I feel like that this is kind of like one of those shows like Lost, or maybe a better comparison is like Sopranos, where it does something audacious and people kind of have to sit and think about it for a while to feel like, where they land on. I mean, there's no short of people that are loving this finale and Mr. Robot. Seems like there's a minority, but a vocal one, of people that like thought that this is 40 hours of their time wasted because it didn't pay off some of these big mystery box things. And it reminds me of like, like in they don't do this anymore, I don't think, but like in old video game magazines, they used to review like a video game by like its story, gameplay, graphics, and sound. Yeah. And then they'd have an amalgam of that review. So I feel like Sam Esmail set out to do something creatively ambitious, emotionally resonant, but also saying something important about our culture and our society. And he chose the like mystery box vehicle to wrap it all in. So if I was going to give like an old Game Informer style review, I'd say creatively 10 out of 10, emotional resonance 10 out of 10, something important about our culture and society 6 out of 10, and mystery box 5 out of 10. And I've been saying all season long that I'm really trying to distance myself from a need to have these mystery box things pay off, for there to be some big particle collider, alternate reality, everyone living in simulation tubes, Neo waking up in a vat of goo moment, right?
Yeah.
Even still, I was a little bit bummed that there weren't answers to some of those questions, and I guess I would have secretly been delighted if Sam was lying to us all along and there was some kind of big close encounter of the Elliot kind thing. If I'm one of my brothers and sisters on the forums and in Reddit and out there who was not emotionally armoring and creating alternate personalities myself, ready to accept this reality, I imagine I'd be really bummed out and disappointed.
Sure, because it turns out that wasn't even a question he was trying to answer for you.
And I see people getting treated like it's almost like gaslighting. Like, there's people out there saying that not only was this show never a mystery box, what kind of fucking idiot would ever think that you would get answers? Like there's this kind of like smug dismissal of people who did pick up on these breadcrumbs erroneously and running way too far with them, like they did something wrong. Like Sam Esmail wasn't intentionally having all these multiple layers of puzzles, alternate reality games, where all this stuff is woven multiple times through this. I mean, I see, like, I don't share that like bitter disappointment, but I see why it's there, and I don't understand why people are trying to tell people that they were stupid for falling for that. Anyway, so I feel like I covered all my bases. What'd you think?
On the other hand, so I really liked. I think this season of television has been great. It's done so many different things so well. the finale I liked a lot. I enjoyed the experience of watching it. I did not feel like it blew my mind at the end. And I, like you, was very much this season gearing up for, I was just kind of leaving my heart open, right? Like, you do what you want with this show, Sam. I'm not going to come in here with many expectations.
Right.
And so when I got to the end, I felt like, okay, cool. That was a well-executed landing for this series. It didn't need to be anything else for me to feel satisfied. But at the same time, like, it didn't blow my mind, right? It's not the best finale of any show I've ever seen. It's not totally recontextualizing everything I thought about the show, because this ending has been kind of theorized for a long time.
In fact, when we first found out about the third identity, I think we laid out like a 4 or 5, maybe 6 point of like what it could be based on what people's speculations were. And this was probably the most conservative, boring of those. That this was just
and I think that's really
repressed anger and
but that reflects the rest of the series emotionally. So it landed for me. But I think there are people out there so invested in their feelings about Sam being a genius, right? I see so many people going like, Sam's a genius, therefore there must be more here. And they're digging and they're digging and they're not finding it. Because
why are these dates off by 1? What did the mother leave in this safety deposit box?
Why was Angela so convinced? The White Rose machine must have worked. Here's a laundry list of things that have to be true because Sam's just too good not to have done anything with those.
Right.
It turns out that doesn't have to be true. You're giving Sam an awful lot of credit, and I give him credit too. He did a hell of a job with this series.
I will say that this is, I think, tons of evidence, and you're already seeing in the first week people rewatching the series and just flooding places with like all these. I do feel like that this is exactly what he intended to do from the very beginning,
and he did a magnificent job of weaving all that stuff in
like
through
Elliot
the
and
entire
Mr. Robot
series.
struggling for control and like all the different like that makes so much more sense when you think about them just being aspects at war than like one aspect at war with the Elliot Prime. Like a lot of those things just track so beautifully. And
but Angela didn't have any alters. And then, like, White Rose machine probably didn't work. It was probably a delusion. And even if it wasn't, we'll never know. And like all these things. And there are wine bottles that say 2017 when this takes place in 2015. Sam's not that much of a genius, okay? Like, yes, he's very good at making television. He's a very good storyteller. Nobody's perfect. So, like, you can't just hand wave everything away and say, well, Sam's a genius, and therefore this must all be bigger than we see.
Right. Yeah, no, that's
because
the other side.
I think the ending of this series is much smaller than a lot of people expected, right? It's much more personal. It's not about the world-changing events. It's not about some alternate dimension. It's much more about Elliot and whether he's going to be okay. Yeah. And I think that's a great ending for this series.
Man, and some of my ambivalence, my little bit of ambivalence is like... Elliot's speech at the end, because again, I think that, this is about a young man's fractured mind, sure, but it wasn't only about that. It was also about this, the stuff that also drove me fucking crazy. Like every time I feel like Sam tried to comment on the economy and why it's unfair, like he doesn't understand it or he was dumbing it down for a standard audience to where
too much. I thought.
like if you dumb it down in such a way that like an econ major would be like, well, here's why you shouldn't listen to Mr. Robot because none of this shit is real and would work and it's like sci-fi, then you fucked it up. Like you should simplify things in a way that when people dig into it more, they're like, oh my God, this thing goes deeper. Like it's simplified in a very shallow kind of way, and
it's a shame because you have a teaching opportunity here, right? Like you could have taken the enthusiasm for the other parts of the show and taught people things about the economy,
right,
and society,
right.
They go the other way.
So, and it could be that like it, one of the nagging things back in my mind is like maybe what Sam is attacking at some of the things in society are just like he's actually he doesn't understand or they're not true, so his anger is misplaced. I don't know. Those are the things I'm trying to work through. But like, just to give you an example of what I've been doing for the last 4 days is like I'm thinking like this thing with Elliot where he's like, maybe we should all just be ourselves and show up for whatever we're showing up for every day, and then the world will change around us. Like. That seems very dangerous, naive advice for
the
world
will change around you. It's just you won't have any effect on it.
Right. Yeah. The world, like all the people who are getting out and doing things to change things, good and bad, are going to have their way, and you're just going to sit it out. But then I'm like, also psychologically, the worst thing you can do is be hard on yourself. Like every perceived failure, to harp on that, and that can paralyze you too. So maybe this theme of like, be your authentic self and forgive yourself is actually what we need to hear. So we will get off our ass and do something, because we'll do it from a healthy frame. We'll do it from an emotional place of like love and openness and giving, rather than like exhaustion and being defeated. And so like I keep going back. It's like, man, that's not the story that I want. That's not the lesson, the moral lesson I wanted Mr. Robot to impart. But who am I to say that it's not something that it is valuable? And to the extent that I think Sam Esmail fucked up some of the basic economic questions, the fact that like 3 or 4 years ago, hardly anybody was talking about, like it was a very minority, non-mainstream opinion to harp about the 1% of the 1% and to wring your hands about billionaires and what the fuck are they doing, pumping hundreds of $millions into our economy, not paying taxes. This is a very this is something that's talked about over dinner tables now. And Mr. Robot is not a huge part of that because its audience wasn't that big, but it's definitely it's definitely part of that like crowbar in society, wedging this door into this bigger issue open, and like, let's get some light. Like, I don't have all the answers, fuck it, but let's start opening this door and seeing what scurries out. So like, that is important. And when Mr. Robot started, almost nobody was talking about that.
Yeah, it was Occupy Wall Street era, right?
And Occupy Wall Street was just a bunch of weirdos camping out in public, snapping in all their meetings, and like it was something that like everyone in the mainstream shit on, because things hadn't rolled downhill enough to where I mean, so nowadays like everybody's like either is affected by it, or someone's affected, or you're so fucking insulated in your economic and social bubble that you're probably honestly part of the problem. And so that's the fact that he tackled that in a way that was engaging and has people talking about it, I think is valuable, even if he didn't do what I would want to do with that opportunity. So yes, I love Mr. Robot. I think the season finale is good, but like I'm still really up in the air about like what reputation will the show have 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I think that's a lot of things we've been talking about when we do, like when shows go off the air, like what will be the lasting impact? Will we kind of feel like Sopranos, where it's like, well, that ending was weird, but like actually it makes sense when you really think about it and read this 50,000 word dissertation, and it'll explain everything? Or will people like continue to pick apart the holes and the plot threads that went nowhere and see that like the emperor had no clothes?
I don't think it'll be that severe. I think it's going to be a thing where it'll come with a caveat. Like, Mr. Robot is a great show, but don't expect all the answers at the end. Yeah.
And I don't know, there could be like, again, if you rewatch the show from the beginning, it could be that with the knowledge that you have, that these plot holes that you thought were going to be plot holes aren't actually, because like I've already seen things like where the one I was in particular thinking about is like Christian Bale's performance when Elliot was explaining from his position how he got thrown out the window.
Christian Slater.
What did I say?
Christian Bale.
Yeah, Bale, Slater, they're both Christians. That's the important part.
Christian Slater lost 50 pounds for this role.
And he was
amazing.
The sixth alt. Did you know that? What shit was I saying? No, like the thing where, like, if you look at Christian Slater's performance when Elliot's, like, how he's reacting to Elliot talking, like, just fabricating details of his life, like, the annoyance and exasperation is a completely, and kind of slight eye rolly, is a complete different emotional payload than when you were seeing it for the first time.
Absolutely.
And if those compound to by the time, and when you get to the fourth season, and you're just like, well, you know, obviously this stuff isn't important because it's not important. These are, you know, what Elliot's delusional mind, his paranoid mind is fixating on. Like, a lot of these things just might not be issues at all. But I'm not going to be the guy that's going to spend 40 hours watching this in the next.
Fire up the Mr. Robot Rewatch podcast. Let's do it.
Those who are in a position to do so, would be probably well rewarded to spend a January and February rewatching and making an exhausting video, because there's an appetite for it.
Yeah.
There's a definite appetite for it. I just that's not how we're set up to do. So, I've already traveled through the light tunnel. I've popped out Elliot's pupil. I've said goodbye to my friend, and that's good enough for me.
Okay. Let's get into the recap, shall we?
We should.
We got a lot to recap, and forgive me because this is going to be a kind of messy recap. I didn't know where to cut a lot of scenes, but we'll stumble through it. So we start with Elliot waking up wherever he is, and the power plant is gone. It's been replaced by a community center. And he wanders downtown where he finds the Mr. Robot store, and he goes inside, and we realize now that we're seeing the other side of last week's episode, where he spots his dad, and he picks up his cell phone, and like you understand what's going on here.
This is Angela's parents.
Yeah. And then he takes off. And
Mr. Robot by Styx hitting on the logo.
Mhm.
Big smile on my face. Yeah. Like when, that's been something that's been long awaited. Like, when is it going to hit? When is it going to hit? When it finally hit, it was a moment, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And go hit up the lyrics of Mr. Robot and have fun seeing how well it like fits with the plot and themes of Mr. Robot. It's it's pretty amazing.
I got a very Back to the Future vibe from everything happening here, from like we talked about with these old-timey signs outside the community center. It was all kind of framed like Marty waking up in a weird suburb, a weird alternate version of his suburb.
He does like a full jaywalk through an intersection, almost gets ran over.
Just like Marty does, yeah.
Sure.
A lot of good stuff there. So something that I noticed right off the bat is the cars. All the cars are white. Every single car, with the exception of one in this universe, is white. And they're all like electrics. Or hybrid electrics.
Seems like it, yeah.
Hybrid vehicles, because there's like just a bunch of Priuses and Teslas, and not sure what they're getting at, other than like some weird utopian universe that he set up here. And the Mr. Robot store, the nature of it was a little strange to me. It almost seems like Edward in this fictional universe is not a computer repairman. He's just like a tinkerer and a hobbyist, because everything in his store is like a fucking Boost Mobile, Cricket wireless store. Like, he's selling cell phones and electronics
like Mr. Robot
and gadgets.
Went the
like,
Radio Shack route, except for he was able to maintain.
But that's all in the back room. Like all of the repair shit. Like, he doesn't.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like there were any signs saying, "Oh yeah, get your computer repaired here." It was more just like electronics and gadgets and stuff.
I mean, the reality is almost every mom and pop computer store has gone out of business a long time ago. So to maintain that fantasy, like maintain this cocoon for Elliot Prime to live in and be happy with, that he had to do things like that.
Does that world evolve? Because Elliot is...
Well, that's a big question about, like, does information from the real world penetrate? And it has to, right?
Because does that change his universe? Because otherwise he'd be stuck in the 80s.
And also Elliot didn't know that, like, I think the big piece of evidence is Angela's true relationship with Philip Price.
Okay.
Like he had no idea he was her father at the beginning of this adventure. So like that loop had to evolve to incorporate that information. And now you've got a father-in-law who is going to be Philip and not the guy you thought was Angela's dad this whole time. So yeah, I think there's been that loop probably evolved as he learned new things. But there again,
what did Elliot think of that? Like,
that's what
the real Elliot.
Well, he's in an Alderson loop, like what he said at the end of the last episode about, like, I like my life, but I can't help feeling like I'm just living this loop, this endless loop of the same thing over and over and over again, because he in fact was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is like all this like dual identity disorder stuff or duplicate identity or multiple identity stuff, like, I don't understand that, and it seems like it's pretty cutting edge psychology. Like it's actively being discussed and debated, and there's very strong opinions on both sides about whether it's even a real thing, like what are repressed memories, what kind of therapeutic techniques uncover those, are the therapeutic in the techniques actually embed these, like, so like I don't know what to think about, like how a shard of someone's personality can spin some kind of simulation and they keep their real self preoccupied with, and how they jockey for like that stuff's never made literal sense to me, but in the context of this world, yeah, it's like he's updating the holodeck.
Yeah.
There's like, loop 334 is oh shit, Angela's dad's price, better put that in there. But also like he's evil incarnate, right? Like there's like meta jokes about that within the loop itself.
Are there?
Yeah, like when he answers the door, it's like, I know you think I'm evil incarnate because I'm but like, yeah, Philip Price, CEO of E Corp, was positioned as evil incarnate. So
sure.
I don't know. It's fun.
So Elliot follows his father to his house, and a girl approaches him on the sidewalk and asks where he's been. Edward leaves his house, and then Elliot asks the girl if she knows where his sister is. That's strange to her because he doesn't have one. And Elliot's mother spots him across the street and invites Elliot in for lunch. Like I said, this neighborhood is Back to the Future as fuck. I keep expecting Crispin Glover to drop out of a tree somewhere.
That's what I was thinking too. So, yeah.
Yeah. Who is this girl? So I know she was in season 1, episode 4 in The Dream.
Yes.
When he was in this universe for a while.
Yeah.
But who is this supposed to be to Elliot? Is it simply a girl he knew from his childhood in the neighborhood? Is it?
Yes. And I also think that there's no way it can possibly matter. It's like.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on that.
Especially since I think it's the same actor too. And like it's just just the older version, like 4 years older version of the 12-year-old girl they had to play the girl on the bike before, and that's supposed to add to the otherworldly nature of it. The fact that like this is some girl who is important to the neighborhood, and not certainly 4 years haven't passed in Showtime, and now she's 4 years older. It's like us and the audience and how we intersect with all that and how weird it all is.
Yeah. A lot of that strangeness around Angela's younger self too.
There's also some like kind of like The Shining type impossible geometry. Like the configuration of Elliot's house has changed. I know we talked about this in like in season 2. I think it was asserted that the outside of F Society is an impossible piece of architecture. Like the way the alley and how close the buildings are, and the way the door to the exterior, like there's no way that set can be like that by what we know from the outside of the boardwalk and the inside of the F Society arcade. So just like in the Overlook Hotel, there's rooms and corridors that can't logically exist based on where we see windows and doors. I think that S-Mail is playing with that a little bit too, with like, hey, the interiors of these rooms change at a whim, and this is all fan. It's like another, I mean, I'd say it's early foreshadowing, but like it seems ridiculous to say that about the 39th hour of television,
Yeah, for sure. It's a little weird to me. I'm trying to parse how much control the mastermind here actually has over this universe, because it's clear that he created it, and he did so as a sort of prison for Elliot.
But when he wakes up in the prison,
and he doesn't fucking know anything about the prison.
Yeah,
he's shocked at what he finds in the prison of his own construction, and I don't
like those
understand.
Earthquakes are cognitive dissonance, is what I kind of assign the label to. Is like anytime where either Elliot Prime or I guess internet's called him Elliot, Mastermind Elliot, realizes that this isn't congruous with my life experience, the world shakes, because like we just hit the wall of the holodeck, that we understand this isn't real.
Yeah, but when he constructs it, like he's constructing his old house, right?
But
why would he put a closet where
he forgot his sister was his sister and not a potential lover? Like Elliot
did he, or was that the real Elliot breaking through? And
well, it's weirder for the real Elliot to forget that it's, No, I think it's, I mean, I don't know. I can't defend this.
I have so many questions.
Right?
You'd have to do a whole rewatch to get at, but
I can't defend this, but emotionally I'm intuiting that, like, yes, this is something that the Mastermind Elliot does. And, like the missing 3 days are so important. Like, it seems like the plain reading on that is that's just when Mr. Robot took control because he had to do the 5/9 hack.
Yeah.
Now, well, I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about this now, because I'm also unclear about the delineation of the duties between the Protector and the Mastermind who wanted to. So he's a protector too, but he looks to eliminate threats from Elliot's future. But he gets so wrapped up in it that he forgets what he's doing. And then another personality, Mr. Robot, who's got his own agenda, has got to be like, hey, 5-9 hack, that seems like something cool that you'd want to do, right? Like he has to trick him into participating again.
And then somewhere along the way, he loses interest in supporting the actions of the vengeful Elliot.
And that's what it's like.
Mastermind.
Because if I take the show at its word, we haven't seen Elliot Prime the entire length of the show. Like it's been fake Elliot and...
Well, no. So there was a moment that they mentioned where he talked with Darlene.
When?
They said like 2 months ago. It was a couple episodes ago, and they said like it was Christian Slater in the boardroom talking with the rest of his family, saying he woke up 2 months ago, and that I think is one of the moments where like real Elliot, whatever that means, woke up, kind of came out of the prison.
Yeah, I wonder
briefly.
what they're talking about, because it
makes
see,
sense he would do that with Darlene.
I saw people talking about how like you see flashes of like the vindictive, persecutorial mother coming through, like when she rips up that one Iron Mountain guy, and you can see where like the little kid version of Elliot takes over, and it's obvious when Mr. Robot takes over. But like, yeah, I wonder when that was when we saw Elliot Prime. Anyway,
yeah, I don't think we ever pinpointed which conversation that was, but we know it happened at some point. So we're inside the house. Elliot sees a photo of his family without Darlene. His mother is acting very strange, and he realizes that everything has changed, including maybe his own past. And he goes to look at the window in his bedroom, but his room is just a closet now. His mom points him to his new room, and he sees all the awards he's won, which I call bullshit on, because they just say Elliot Alderson Computer Award Best Gamer.
Do they really?
That's not an award. Anyway, he asks his mom about the accident, but she doesn't recall what he's talking about. And he asks if either she or his father ever hurt him. She says nope. Asks if something happened with Angela, and alludes to them getting married, which sends Elliot off to her apartment to find her. Back to the Future is fuck inside the house too. There's a Huey Lewis in the News poster. There are skateboards everywhere. Like, couldn't get much more Back to the Future at the
What was the
beginning
deal
of
with the
this
curtains?
episode. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I trust they're different, but it's like the show wanted me to be like, wow, what a profound. But like, I've been in his room many different times. I've been in his room when it was a prison. I've been in this room when it was just his mom's house. And like, I don't have that eye for interior decor, and I didn't have time to go back and like look to see. But it's like, I wonder what they're trying to get at with these curtains.
I don't know. She clearly wanted those for 30 years.
Yeah, totally.
Got anything more to say about this scene, or
are we talking about visiting Angela's apartment, or that's where we're going?
Nope, that's where we're headed now. On the way to Angela, Elliot asks us if we're buying any of this. He refuses to buy it until he sees Angela, and then he arrives at her apartment. She, unfortunately, is not home, but her parents, Philip and Emily, invite him in to chat. Philip pours the drinks that we see, the in the last episode with the blood in the trash can. Elliot spots this collage that Angela made for him as a gift. Emily says that Edward came by and showed him his gift for Angela, and then they share drinks until the other Elliot calls Angela's parents, tipping Elliot off that there is another Elliot in the picture. And this earthquake hits, and Angela's mother cuts herself on that glass, and Elliot flees.
Such a strange little... First of all, the number of Mr. Robot nerds, they're going to make those collages about their sweethearts and present those as engagement gifts, and the numbers are going to be upvoted to the front page of r/Mr. Robot. Definitely not zero.
Yeah, Valentine's Day is coming up.
Yeah, there you go.
Just saying.
If your sweetheart is even sort of kind of interested in Mr. Robot, then he or she will probably...
But we know that that's not true, because no one who watches this show has a friend who also watches the show.
That's
no
true.
one, period.
That's true. And also, like, would you be saying that you're trapped in a fantasy that's deliberately pulling the wool over your sweetheart's eyes? And if she could really wake up and see, like, there's all kinds of weird old metaphors. But then again, people idolize Harley Quinn and Joker's relationship, so people are fucking weird. What is the strange little element about Philip's drinking? Like,
the strange
Elliot
element?
Prime, stuck in the fantasy, said that apropos to nothing to Angela. It's like, your dad really likes to drink. And then this is like he's like constantly pushing off the drinking, and his mom's like, okay, but just like weird detail to put in there. Is it something like Elliot, even in a paradise, can't let Philip Price be a good person? He's got to have a dark secret.
You can be a good person and drink.
No, hey, I try to walk that line myself.
Okay.
However, I'm just saying that none of my friends, like I can't, there's never been a friend to be like, hey, I want to talk to you about your drinking. It's kind of scary. Notice you drink a lot. You're drinking all the time, a.ron. What?
And then goes and tells your daughter,
yeah,
your dad drinks a lot. Jesus Christ.
Like, yeah, you notice how much your dad drinks? Like, I don't know. I thought it was weird.
I'm not sure. Don't know what they're getting at. So Elliot freaks out about the voice on the phone, wondering about the implications of there being two of him here, and he warily goes to his apartment. No one's home. He rifles through his own stuff, trying to figure out who this other Elliot is. He spends all day hacking his own computer and realizes that this guy is just Happy Elliot, but that bugs him even more. So eventually he finds a hidden partition on his drive, and he decrypts it, and it reveals sketches of the Mr. Robot we know. Basically the whole show, his own life. I was still calling this guy Felliot at this time, so here's where my notes get weird.
You morphed to Melliot?
Yeah. No, he morphed to Elliot. Like the Felliot's now Elliot, and Elliot is now Melliot. And
okay, yeah.
So my notes are all fucked up.
Elliot Prime should be Pelliot, probably. Yeah, Prime Elliot.
Okay.
Preliot?
Fake Elliot explains that he created that more exciting character in his head. He also says that Darlene is his partner in crime, and F Society is just a dumb name he came up with because he fantasized about being this guy, though he doesn't really want to be him because he's not normal. And then Fake Elliot hears the voice, and
this is literally true, right? Because I think this is later. This is later endorsed by the Krista persona that Elliot Prime did fantasize about being this character as a way to escape the other mental issues and being trapped in his boring life caused him.
Right. Okay. I think this is literally true.
Because honestly, the thing I left out by my first rewatch is, and one of the reasons I was so distressed is because I really thought we were going for a full-on Saint Elsewhere, that everything in the last year was a paranoid delusion, and Elliot's been in a psychiatric hospital since setting that server room on fire. Like, I was really thinking, like, oh shit, we're going to hit ground zero of Saint Elsewhere, and people are going to lose their foot. I now think that all of the things we've seen, from the mundane to the crazy, actually literally happened. Like all the White Rose stuff, all the Chinese national stuff, all the e-coin stuff, all the economic instability, all the people that died, that actually happened. It's not it's not Elliot's imagination. No,
we'll talk about it more when we get there, but I think that's what the anchor here is. Darlene. That's the big grounding reality here. But we'll talk about that in a bit.
Okay.
So Elliot goes to leave, and Fake Elliot grabs his arm. An earthquake hits, killing Fake Elliot. And then Elliot answers a phone call from Angela, who says he just needs to show up tomorrow, and he'll get what he's always wanted, to be happy with her. Elliot agrees he's going to show up for the wedding. Elliot isn't quite dead, and Elliot has to make a choice whether to let him die
dead.
or be with Angela or help him. And he chooses to kill Elliot, insisting to us that he had no other choice. And that's the end of this episode.
Yeah, that's and I remember at the end of this thinking, wow, what a fucking first half. Like Elliot has pivoted to being the clear villain. His hands are literally soaked in blood. Because there was a middle choice of him just like letting nature take its course, but he actively killed his true self.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means in terms of the fantasy either.
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like where it ends up, there's not a lot that you need to question.
I think Mr. Robot says you can't do what you just did. Like you could try to do it, but you can't literally kill Elliot. So.
Yeah, and that happens immediately in the next episode.
And as soon as he does it, it like changes the nature of reality. Like Angela's no longer in love with him. He no longer has his perfect wedding to go to.
Everybody can see him for what he is.
Yeah,
like he's trying to fool himself here.
So it's almost like
working.
is there like a parallel pocket dimension or pocket mental space where he's in and the real Elliot's still safe somewhere else? Because I'm trying to process this with like mate, but there again, that's why I don't DID. I don't understand, like,
Yeah. No, it's a good question, because if you think that he kills the real Elliot in this scene, what is there to come back to?
Right. Yeah.
So it almost seems like there has to be some other trick going on here. I really appreciated that Elliot had to hack himself in this scene. It was fantastic because he's doing it in the exact way that he would do it with any other person that he was hacking. Nobody's as perfect as they seem is a line that he has said so many times
yeah.
about other people.
Yeah.
And now he's saying that about himself. It's so good.
And I love the shot of like the camera rapidly going from his face to the keyboard, his hands, and the screen, and like, the day turning into night to just sell like he's done his full on obsessive Elliot, social media dive, attacked all of his encryption, broken all of his accounts. He's done it again to himself.
Yeah. And you can see how ominous this is. Like you said, it's he's become a villain here. There's no way you can do what he's doing and be happy.
Yeah.
Because you would always have that knowledge, that secret.
Can I ask you a question? So is Elliot Prime, I mean, clearly he's not the CEO of AllSafe, but did he have a better life than black hoodie wearing Elliot was is the truth somewhere between what we see, this crazy, like gregarious guy has got lots of friends and a full life, and you're
talking about real Elliot, not in this fake, like this constructed
like what
prison,
was his
but
life
in the real
before
world.
the mastermind hijacked him, or
Gotcha.
Mr. Robot hijacked him, or before Darlene came back, because I think Darlene is what caused it both. Darlene came back and caused Mr. Robot to assert himself, which then activated the mastermind persona as well. Before that, because when we had these multiple flashbacks, like Angela and Darlene both said, you're completely different, you're acting completely different. Like I guess I don't think that he's ever super this high functioning Elliot, but he wasn't as bad as like heroin addicted Mastermind Elliot gets him in season 1, right?
Yeah, you're probably right.
And he's actively going through therapy. Like that's something that happened before.
Yeah.
See, these are, I guess, the questions I have is, what was Elliot like before the mastermind? And when did he hijack him and start hiding from the therapist? We know that just from what Krista said about you're hiding again, it probably happened sometime during the time she was carrying, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, my guess would be that there was some, there's some amalgamation of all of these characters that is real Elliot. And so he wouldn't be the happiest person in the world.
Yeah.
Like this fake universe prison is trying to portray him as, but he also wouldn't be Mastermind Elliot. He'd be somewhere in the middle, right? Yes, he'd probably be pretty well adjusted, but he would have this deep anger and trauma and depression hanging over him, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe he could get along in life that way, but he wouldn't be either of these characters. He'd be something entirely different. Yeah,
and a lot of times when you start therapy, things get worse before they get better, because it's about all the maladaptive coping mechanisms you've come up with, kind of like physical therapy. Let's say that your hip hurts, so you compensated by walking funny, so your hip doesn't hurt as much, and now you've gotten yourself to where your gait's all fucked up, and a physical therapist would have you start working properly, which is going to hurt like hell, and we're going to properly heal this. So if you stop doing all your maladaptive things to protect yourself from your life and you try to learn something different, that's painful. Because you haven't got your new healthy processes built yet, and you don't want to lean back on your old. And I imagine that if you had duplicate identities or multiple identities, that would be something that would terrify the other identities. Oh my God, all these things, these elaborate things we've built to save us are being dismantled. Mm-hmm. We have to kick and rebel against that. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, if Elliot successfully integrates himself, then they are, at the end of this episode, going to die, or they're going to at least give up control completely. Yeah. And that's got to be terrifying too, from a alternate personalities perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Mr. Robot understands the value in that, whereas Mastermind Elliot does not. And so he's fighting against it, whereas Mr. Robot is encouraging it. Okay, we go to episode 2, the second episode of our discussion here, Hello Elliot, where Elliot does a full wipe down of the scene. And then he goes outside to the same parking lot that he woke up in after the 5-9 hack, in the same car, in fact. After getting a call from Philip telling him where the wedding is at, Coney Island, He pulls his car around and he dumps the body in a box. He dresses as Mr. Robot. Kind of, he's worried about his strategy of replacing Elliot, essentially. Is trying to convince him not to do it.
It's like, you really want to go to this whole talented Mr. Ripley
right.
routine, man?
Think you can pull this off?
Yeah. You're not
Elliot,
Matt Damon.
Elliot tells him to either help or get out of the way, and he puts the body in his car. Well, he tries to, but a parking cop version of Dom shows up, which is just fucking sad. The Dom, you got to create a perfect universe for Elliot, but Dom's got to suffer. I feel like she probably would have been happy at the FBI.
I was gonna say maybe because she's actually miserable at the FBI, because there's another piece of information that
under
bled
the Dark
back
Army's
into
influence.
the fantasy world that wasn't around in season 1. So there's another piece of evidence that this fantasy world must constantly be evolving.
Right.
But yeah, she's just a beat cop.
Yeah, so she's trying to ticket him for parking illegally, and he hands her his ID, and Dom says, that's wrong, because this person is nothing like you.
Mm-hmm.
And she sees blood in his cuff and on the ground, and she finds the body in the box, and then an earthquake strikes, and Elliot takes off running, and we know that Elliot cannot be caught once he's on foot and sprinting.
Nope.
So he gets on a train, and he escapes. Mr. Robot tries to explain what's happening, but Elliot refuses to listen, declaring that he just wants to be alone. And I think a question I had on first viewing, like during this scene, but by the end I think was answered, is what tipped Dom off? How did Dom know that this wasn't the real Elliot? And I think it becomes obvious that it's just Elliot's subconscious calling himself out.
Yeah, there's a lot of people with, I think, bad takes saying that, like, oh, she saw his picture and it was somebody else. And I'm like, this is all dream logic.
Yeah.
This is the inevitability of what Mr. Robot's trying to warn him, that you are not this Elliot, and you cannot pretend to be, because it's not just you looking like him. And I love the unhinged, like, bass notes that accompanied, like, his scrub down, and, like, anytime he'd make some terrifying, like, assertion like that, when Mr. Robot's like, you're not, guys, like, why not? We look just like each other. And but yeah, it's not about, like, Dom, like, looking at his ID and seeing, like, this ID is supposed to be, like, your identity in like a Freudian, Jungian sense.
Sure.
And it's not matching up. It's not like she looked at his picture and he looks like Irv, or something like that. This is all dream logic, and dream cop Dom clocked him as not being actual Elliot Prime.
Yeah, and I like how this ties into the real world too. Because Elliot is trying to be someone he's not here in this fake prison world, but he's also doing that in real life too. And you can see that he's become a misfit because of that. Like, his life is not on track in the real world at all. Everything he does is kind of ending in a weird sort of failure. And it's all because he's trying to deny the entirety of his personality here, like who he really is, and trying to pretend to be something else. Okay, Elliot arrives on the Coney Island beach where all of his wedding guests are dressed in F Society masks, and Mr. Robot explains that the machine in the real world, a White Rose machine, has been deactivated, and he's currently in a prison, which is this recursive loop that he constructed about a year ago to keep the real Elliot occupied. He explains that the real Elliot is just a part of all of them, and he needs to let go so the real Elliot can get back to his life. Then Angela shows up, but she flees when she sees Elliot. Elliot chases after her, and they end up in F Society HQ. Angela tells him he's not Elliot, he's the mastermind. And then Elliot is sort of booted from Fun Society and follows Mr. Robot to this strange land where everyone is Christian Slater. He confronts Mr. Robot. It turns out to be Tyrell, and Tyrell shoots him, and he wakes up in the dark with Tyrell digging his grave. Tyrell throws him in a hole, and Angela asks him to wake up. I'm going to cut right there, because if I don't, this will be the rest of the episode.
Yeah. So there's a countdown happening, like these childish voices. I think that's Elliot and Angela playing hide and seek in the museum, I think.
Could be, yeah.
But that's what I got. And I mean, this is just, I don't know what this is. I don't know what is supposed to be conveyed by
all the Christian
is this
Slayers.
Like a Mr. Robot? Like is this like you're seeing Mr. Robot trying to assert control, trying to like stop this process, kill this process?
Yeah. Trying to push him toward the exit
Yeah, because like it makes sense that Mr. Robot can have some influence on this world to the maybe not as much as the Mastermind, because for whatever reason he's hijacked the process.
Yeah, but Mastermind is in a much weakened state here,
Certainly.
right? Like he's had what I think is sort of real Elliot breakthroughs with Krista and Vera a few episodes ago, which has sort of weakened the control that Mastermind Elliot had over real Elliot.
Why do you think that there was cheers and applause when he was shot?
I can only imagine that's the other subconscious or the other alters of Elliot, like wanting Elliot to break free.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things they're doing here that I don't know how much of it like is Sam Elliott actually intentionally doing things, and how much is like, hey, we did a lot of trippy shit back in season 1 in this fantasy sequence. We need to hit all those. But I haven't really thought any more about what that all means.
I'm sure this hangs together. Like there's a lot you could say about Mr. Robot and stuff not hanging together, but this scene is probably not one of those things.
Let me ask you this: since we're talking about hanging together, what would this look like as a 2-hour movie?
I don't think it would look like this.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like how this would work as like, I'm thinking like it'd probably be like the last 20 minutes of the last episode where you meet this guy and things are just not quite right, and then he meets a duplicate of himself, and then it turns in there's like a Matrix moment where like this is all like the Mr. Robots. I don't know. Because like the way this felt, which is kind of like an epilogue to the actual series Mr. Robot, is entirely different than I thought it was going to work when I was gearing up for it last week. I thought that this was going to be a hell of a capsule that the Saturn V rocket that is the 4 seasons of Mr. Robot is going to propel into orbit.
Yeah.
And what it felt like instead is kind of like 10 years after the moon landing, a historian explaining to you the cultural significance of the moon landing,
Okay.
So that if I told you that like the whole point of the moon landing was to get to the historian telling you over documentary footage what the significance is, you'd be like, what? So it's like it's weird to me that this was all the original idea, but it has to be distorted and manipulated so much because of everything that came before it.
That's the thing. Like I almost kind of wish that Sam hadn't said anything about that and said instead, look, I have an ending in mind. I know where I'm going with this. Yeah. Not like these last 2 episodes are what the show or what the movie would have been essentially, because you can't. You can make that movie, but it wouldn't have the emotional resonance that this entire series has had. Yeah. Yeah. Like these last 2 episodes work precisely because I already know so much about Elliot and his past and who he is and who he wants to be and who the people around him are. Like, I don't know that you can convey all that in just 2 hours.
I think it's closer to like if you took all of season 4 and found a way to condense that into like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that gets closer.
Because you have to have like, there has to be like a little element of Elliot being contacted by Mr. Robot and being led to do something, and then realizing that this was you know what I mean, there has to be a White Rose or a machine that's over, or a 5/9 hack. Or else there's no remarkably little action that's propelling anything forward. So I'd love to know exactly what the original treatment looked like.
And you have to get to all of the abuse from Edward, and like
that's what I was thinking, like,
that's completely absent from this. You don't understand the context for why he would imprison real Elliot, what his anger is. Like,
but that could be like a 2-minute scene as opposed to an entire episode of like, why are you hiding from yourself? What's the thing you can't face? Oh, my dad is a child molester. Obviously that's not going to be
it'd be so diminished compared to what we got.
Sure.
Like, can you imagine trying to convey that hefty emotional payload? With just 2 minutes.
It's almost easier to see that episode, like that Vera episode, exploded into a 2-hour self-contained kind of like art film type of thing than it is
or a stage play, perhaps.
Than to imagine like what these last 2 hours would look like as a standalone without context movie.
Right. You get one last bonsoir, Elliot, and I know everyone was really looking forward to this, and I hope it paid off. Can we finally put to rest the Tyrell is not dead theories?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's to no thanks to Sam Elliott or Sam Elliott.
Yeah, well, no thanks to Sam Elliott either.
Yeah, don't give him credit for shit. He hasn't done a damn thing since last season of Justified. He's got nothing to say about this. But no, I think it's no credit to Sam Esmail that like people are still, you know, because again, like I really appreciate the deep diving you did on the meanings behind that, but like with absent that, all of that research, like the plain reading is, oh, there's something, this isn't the end for Tyrell, there's something else that's going to happen, like, you know, or it's one of the plain readings you can have.
Sure, certainly you could think that, but yeah, if you're confused by that still, just go read The Stranger, or don't even read The Stranger, go like do what I did and read the thematic analysis of The Stranger.
But yeah, Tyrell's dead. Tyrell's dead. I don't know what Mr. Robot's trying to say with Tyrell, much less his wife, much less with the adventures of government issue Face Man. Like, again, maladaptive coping mechanisms all around. Like, I don't know. It's bad news for anybody who likes to get kinky in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Those maladaptive sexual coping strategies are just going to line up with you gut shot and dead in the woods. Yeah. As psychic death howls surround you as you gaze into the spiritual baby monitor of your son's face forever. I don't know. That's weird. Don't understand it.
I knew Angela was in trouble. I knew she wasn't getting away because you can't outrun Elliot.
Right.
During this scene. But then we go to what is almost the rest of the episode here. Stop me if there's anything you really want to talk about in context, but I'm going to recap a whole bunch here.
Is this Neo meeting the architect?
It is.
Okay.
Done. Recap over.
Boom.
But the architect is Krista. This fake version of Krista. Suddenly, Elliot's back on Krista's couch in front of someone who's not really Krista, but is a construct of Krista. Elliot wants to talk to Darlene, but he can't because she's not in this world. She's in the real world. Elliot tried to trap himself in this place, which was easier without his link to reality, which was Darlene. And he tries to leave, but he keeps arriving back in the room over and over. And Krista explains all of the portions of Elliot's personality, including the one that thinks he's the real Elliot, but isn't. He's the mastermind. And this is when my notes went off. Fuck, I have no idea who's who here. And we get a lot of flashbacks showing us the clues embedded in the show.
Yeah.
Which... Maybe let's pause here for a second, because I actually think of all of the shows that I've seen that do big, stupid exposition dumps, I've never felt more rewarded by one than this show. Because I didn't feel like this was just simply telling me the story because they couldn't convey it. They had been conveying it for 4 seasons, and this was them rewarding my attention for the last 4 seasons.
I guess it felt like it's one of those things where, much like the Philip Price info dump from earlier this season, it, for some reason, had to tell the characters what we, the viewers, already knew, I think, at this point. But I also think, I also see the vital need to do something like this to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
because if you're scratching your head at the end about who Elliot is, man, this show would be confusing. And I think for a lot of people who weren't following along on Reddit, who weren't reading the theories, who didn't know kind of what was coming here.
But so I'm going to say, because I think there's a couple of things, there's some pointed criticism I want to level at this scene.
Okay.
Number one is, I think it did a terrible job of contextualizing what we, the viewers, role was in this. Like,
yes,
you can't just have Krista look us in the eye and say, I know all about you guys out there.
You're the
Reddit
voyeurs
land,
who did nothing about it.
And then go right back in this complaint. So like I was expecting maybe a little bit more from the reveal, like from us being addressed by a person.
Yes, I will say that was the one area of this show where I started to get my hopes up a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
Was like, maybe he's going to do something that flips television itself on its head. And that's so fucking ambitious. I was an idiot.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Like,
Dora the Explorer? Like,
right.
Are you going to do Peter Pan? Clap for Elliot to live, everybody. Everybody clap. And like you either at home clapping ridiculous or you're snidely laughing at the television for how stupid it's trying to be.
I thought Esmail had something up his sleeve, and he was going to blow my mind with this reveal, and he simply gives one line of dialogue and then leaves it behind forever.
And then second is, I think that I'm comparing this to the only other alternate identity, multiple identity piece of information, entertainment I've seen since like Sybil, which is the M. Night Shyamalan Split.
Okay.
Like all of those personalities were very clearly delineated with like different goals, and like I like in just span of like a 2-hour movie, I understood like 6 of these people and how they roll, and I could instantly tell when McAvoy was. Is it McAvoy? Mm-hmm. Okay. When he was being one guy or one lady or the other. Even Krista holding my hand and explaining like Mr. Robot is the protector and a Mastermind is a slightly different protector and the mother is for that mother actually makes sense. Like the mother is the personification of all of his inner critic.
Yes.
But then also the child Elliot who protected him from the abuse that he couldn't like. That splitting the protector persona awfully fucking fine, and I still can't tell you what the child does. I really can't. Like, to me, that was, I think it's a bad job of explaining what the child Elliot did. Because, like, what I got from this season was child Elliot was there when Elliot needed to be told that, like, our mom persona has been telling us this is all our fault. I'm here to tell you we did fight. We fought the whole time. It's just we're kids. And we fought the way kids do, and it didn't work. It was ineffective because, you know, kids can't fight against adults.
Yeah, so I wrote down what she says about younger Elliot, actually all the personas here. And she specifically says that younger Elliot was there to handle the abuse he couldn't tolerate. But isn't that also what all of the other...
Right.
Well, with the exception of Magda.
And what would be like emerged later? Like what abuse was Elliot getting later in life that a child persona would be better able to handle? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't, to me, that this was very, like, he clearly thought through the Mastermind and Mr. Robot. This other stuff, I don't think Sam Esmail.
I mean, was it a way of Elliot compartmentalizing this abuse that he couldn't tolerate? So he had his protector, Mr. Robot. He has his vengeful angel, Mastermind.
Mm-hmm. It's a shitty name for that too, by the way.
Mastermind?
Like the Mastermind is the righteous anger, like weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and then he's got this younger Elliot, which he might have sort of created as a bag to put his suffering into. After the fact, like as an adult, right? As an adult, you might create a child version and sort of say like, well, this happened to me a long time ago. I'm gonna try and ignore it and like shove all of the bad feelings you have into that.
Yeah, it's possible, but it felt like, you know, it's like one of the hallmarks of a good teacher is they're able to explain complex subject matter in an easily accessible way.
Yeah.
And I felt like this is a teacher that like barely had this grasp and just trying to like, because like this is a pretty lengthy scene that took its time to say a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
And the big revelation, which the things that like are Elliot's relationship to us, the audience, Elliot's relationship with all these other alts, was less than 30 seconds of its runtime. And it felt like they just did that and this like flashed pictures of his mom's face and young Elliot's face and it's like QED and I'm like, Q does not fucking ED at all. But, you know, again, whatever.
It might with a rewatch. And
that's
I'm like,
that's what I'm saying. That's where 3 months from now someone's going to make a lot of bank on YouTube or Patreon with the comprehensive 8-season. Because that's the other meme going around Reddit, that Mr. Robot isn't a 4-season show. It's an 8-season show that you immediately rewatch at the conclusion of season 4. And then the knowledge you gain into the next rewatch is the second half of the epic. And I'm like, all right, I kind of believe that someone's going to do it and it's going to be amazing.
For sure. I don't know. I thought it felt more rewarding than dissatisfying. So. Let's get to another portion of the scene. Krista tells him to give the control back to the host, the real Elliot. Mastermind refuses and wakes up in the hospital in the aftermath of the power plant crisis. And he sees on the news that the nuclear meltdown didn't happen, but White Rose was found dead. Darlene's with him, and Elliot is relieved to see her, and what she confirms, see her, and also what she confirms is the real world, in fact, if you believe that. She fills him in on how he survived and what happened to White Rose and her machine. She says the power supply malfunctioned and it blew up, so we don't really know if the machine worked or not.
So, okay.
There's a lot of stuff around this. I guess we can talk about that now. He saved the world.
When I first watched this, I interpreted this scene as Elliot still being in. This is his this was the Mastermind's personality's last attempt to like try to bridge the difference between what the other personalities want to do and what he wanted to do, which is to say that this is still a dream. Now, the one contradiction is that Darlene's here.
Yeah.
And that seems like it's the totem that like in Inception, like that's Mal's wedding ring that like if it spins.
So. Or the top or whatever, yeah.
On the other hand, like she directly contradicted something that Mr. Robot said, which is you were right, the game you played turned everything off and there wasn't an explosion, and everything that's happened since is me trying desperately to hijack you and make you see the truth. Darlene saying that like, oh yeah, there was an explosion. It's just a room that you were in had some sort of advanced shielding that protected you from it. And all like it's, and then when she explains all this stuff, which is a very complimentary view of what Elliot did. And she says, I guess it's official. You've saved the world. That seems like Mastermind talk. That seems like
Darlene blowing shit at her brother. Like,
yeah,
in my opinion, that's Darlene like poking a little fun at the lofty goals they thought they had.
But
like,
also there's this key where like Darlene says, he goes, am I real? And Darlene grabs his hand and is like, of course you're real. This is the system that says that we worked out that says that you're real. Yeah. But it's lying because even Mastermind Elliot realizes that this isn't reality. That it's still that he isn't Elliot. So it's like I think that probably it's intended to be the real world and you're seeing this as like a Mastermind Elliot letting go. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's very open to interpretation about whether this is still a layer of the dream world and Elliot finally wakes up at the very last. Like, well, I mean, that's absolutely the truth. Elliot finally wakes up after they go through the tunnel of light into his pupils.
Yeah.
But like this here, like there's also some things like Darlene's like clicking on this nurse call button and no one comes and no one comes and no one comes and
is that the nurse call? I thought that was the morphine drip.
Oh, well, she grabs them and hits a button and says the nurses will be here any minute. I think she does it another time and she finally leaves to go find the nurses. And I'm like,
okay,
is this a tell? But there again, this is the puzzle box thing. It's like when you stop playing the puzzle box.
Yeah.
And like Elliot, Mastermind Elliot says this only works if we all let it go, So I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess like that ending is
because this is also what that interpretation is what had me kind of like, are they actually saying that everything in the last year of Showtime didn't happen? That the Elliot's been in a bed, the Elliot like slept, like that this is I don't know.
So if,
I don't think that's true anymore after watching it again and reading, but I'm like, it was a little muddy for me. I'm going to put myself as a reasonably intelligent person who has somewhat familiar with the way television works.
You're the mastermind. Just say it.
Yeah. That was my takeaway the first time I watched it. Like, holy shit, did he just retcon or snow globe the entire series? I don't think he did. But he flirted with it. I don't think so. He's flirting with it here.
Yeah, and you kind of have to. Yeah. With as twisty as this thing has been up till now,
that's the thing.
You got to leave people guessing until the end.
When you got the mystery box, you got to play. When you stop boxing the mystery, and
when does the audience?
Yeah,
because
a lot of people
there
still
can
not
always
doing it.
Be ways to wiggle out of the definitive statement that Sam's trying to make.
Well, and there's another thing is like it's hard for me to. When the fan base is saying simultaneously that like, well, the lesson is that you got to just let go and that this is all just about a person's mental state and, it just only works if you let go, and simultaneously saying, I can't wait to watch the rewatch so I can, it's like,
Yeah, you're not letting go.
Yeah, and what did
You're grabbing
Sam?
on tighter
What,
to
what
a show
did-
that's over.
What did Sam intend? Like, if that's his message, but like everything in the show screams, "No, rewatch me and get all the mysteries."
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little bit talking out of both sides of its mouth creatively. But again, that's why I would rather split my dick with a chopstick than try to write a mystery box in 2020 in
Sure.
the age of the internet.
Sure.
Like what?
We saw how that worked on Watchmen.
Yeah.
Like we saw how that worked on this show.
Yeah.
Like basically everything was figured out
Sure.
coming up to the end. Reddit did its job.
It's
which is
actually
to ruin all
interesting
of
to see
television.
how leftovers is strategy where you say the whole time, this looks like a mystery box, but it's not a mystery box. I don't know why Esmail
And I
was
think
why was he less successful at that message than Lindelof? Was it because he wasn't getting like
He was leaning further into it, I thought. Like there was yes, there was a lot of line straddling, but I always felt like his commentary outside of it was always like a little too cheeky. Like a little he wasn't telling people like settle the fuck down. This has nothing to do with anything you think it does.
he did at the end of season 3. But that was when I saw him come
Okay.
out real strong.
What did he say at the end of season
He said
3?
there's not going to be people that are looking for a sci-fi time travel
Okay.
like Star Trek Borg thing are going to be disappointed. But like I also think it's part of like Lindelof came off from Lost, so everybody's like, well, you did this before, are you doing it again? And all the press was around, no, I'm not. Versus Sam Esmail comes out with an obvious mystery box. There's no long storied history of Sam Esmail on television, so people like by the time they're asking, hey, what are you playing about? He's already season 3 of the podcast, and
he was trying like season 1 is a fucking mystery box with an answer.
Yes.
Like who is Mr. Robot? Got fucking answered, you know, at least partially.
Yeah.
It unfolds later, but we knew it was his dad
Yeah.
by the end of season 3 or season 1, and that was the mystery.
But it's interesting to see how you do like a Sixth Sense style mystery box in 2020 when you have to do it over 4 episodes of television. Like I think we're seeing like, Westworld try to do it a certain way to some success, some failure. Leftovers did it like perfectly. I think The Watchmen did it very well, and its strategy was essentially kind of keep a mystery box going for an episode or 2, and then while the internet's breaking their arm, patting themselves on the back, figuring that out when they're not going to notice the one I'm setting up for episodes 4 and 5, like, and then there's the Mr. Robot where it's like I'm going to use the mystery box as the protective cocoon around this actual secret that I want to tell to land with an emotional. Because like the other thing is like, I think this story did a really good job of conveying what it's like to live in some kind of like mental illness where you can't trust your senses, where there is this paranoia, where people are out to get you. And
where you're out to get yourself.
or you're at, like the fact that you can't trust, like how hard it is to trust your loved ones and your friends when they could be delusions, they could be figments of imagination, it could be the drugs talking. I mean, that's pretty fucking awesome what they did with that part of the material.
Yeah, the central core of this show is excellent. And I think to the extent that you get caught up in trying to go back and answer the questions that Sam Esmail doesn't seem to care to answer for you, like whether White Rose's project worked or not, that's the extent to which you'll drive yourself insane.
Yeah. And there's like, that's the real life analogs. There's all kinds of like mysteries and, closure we don't get in real life. And, people that have healthy internal processes to deal with that and move on. And people that don't are driven crazy by them. Yeah. And the mystery box wrapper is an interesting way to convey that experience. Probably the only way you can do it.
Yeah. Now I wonder what this show would look like if up front they said, these are the characters, these are the parts of Elliot. Like here's who this character is, and now tell a story around that.
Yeah.
It would look very, very different.
It would. It'd almost be like
maybe interesting, but very different.
Yeah, it'd almost be like a inherently more funny concept. Like it almost seems like a sitcom to have like these various personas personified and like fighting with each other.
When one of your alters is Alf,
yeah,
it's gonna be a comedy. There's not much you can do. All right, let's keep going. Elliot tells Darlene that he's not the real Elliot. He's only a part of him. Darlene says she's known that he's not Elliot because he's not the Elliot that she grew up with. since they started F Society. And she didn't say anything because she was just happy they were getting close to each other and didn't want that to end. They never got close before because she didn't know how to deal with what Elliot was going through. And so she left so she wouldn't have to. And when she came back, Elliot was very different. And she asks if real Elliot is okay. And Elliot says, yes, he's in a safe place that he made for him, but he doesn't have everything, which is her. And he tells Darlene that he loves her. And then Elliot stares out the window and fades away. Kind of. We'll get to the last chunk of this here in a second. Or maybe we will now. I don't know. The sign on the wall says the discharge time is approximately 11 p.m., which I thought was hilarious.
11 a.m.
Or, yeah, 11 a.m. rather, because it's probably 11:16 is when you would get discharged in this world. That's another thing that, like, how
I
much
was thinking,
does that
like, the
connect?
runtime. Like,
11:16?
I was wondering if close that would be to the end of the runtime. Like, if this thing started to air at 9 Eastern or 9 wherever you are, and it wraps up around 11:16 because it's got, it's what, there's a 55-minute episode and like 47-minute episode, and you throw commercials in there.
That might have been true. Maybe it did. I didn't watch it live. I
didn't either. So I'm like, I wonder if that was a thing. And then it's like the AM versus PM is off by 1, But there again, that's the mystery box thing that the show has told me is not important. So who the fuck cares?
Yeah, I mean, it could just be there for.
That's the thing.
Like, and
that's, I think
weird.
that's where the righteous or the justified anger is coming from. Is like, this show taught us to pay attention to that stuff. 11:16, the 5/9s, all that kind of stuff, and it's literally not important.
Yeah.
It's literally not important to understanding the main thrust and probably the second and tertiary thrusts of this series. And that's kind of feels weird from a perspective of a person who spent many, many hours, other than the 40 that I spent watching it the first time, thinking about this thing and sharing it with other people and, reading everyone's theories and whatnot.
Yeah.
So.
No, I like what, I like this scene a lot. And, it's basically the final scene. It's the final moment between Elliot and his sister, and they kind of bring it back to what White Rose, or what Elliot was telling White Rose in that scene last episode, where essentially she, says that people are terrible and all that stuff. And he says, no, they're not. They're kind of our lifeline. And I think that Darlene being his anchor into reality here, and his sort of like, his lifeline to coming back to the real Elliot, I think is pretty poignant. It's pretty, like, if you're going to put a definitive statement on what this show was trying to say, I think that's it.
The Darlene loved
the
even
connections to people are the important thing.
Yeah, and then the fact that Darlene's willing to love and embrace and accept even a fragment of her brother because it's better than nothing, like that.
Yeah.
That love allowed, in a very direct way, the Mastermind Elliot to take a step back and give up control. And to trust that there's, and I don't know, because like I said, there's a little bit of criticism I have, like I said in the beginning, that like you're really mixing your critique when you are collapsing all the things you said about society and the economy and the standard fairness of it, and you're jumbling it up with one man's, fight against depression and mental illness. Yeah. And I don't, but then again, like I said, I also am allowing that maybe if I get a couple more weeks and months to think about it, that is one in the same, because, I was looking for Sam to tell us like what we can do. And his message seems to be, you individually can't do anything except for to be an individual and refuse to be a cog in a machine. And then that itself might break the machine. I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe. Yeah.
We'll see. Check back in 10 years.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about that scene, I guess. We go to the boardroom where Elliot's mental family overlooks the city. Elliot relinquishes control to the real Elliot as he talks about changing the world and changing Elliot. And he walks down the hall and he exits into a theater where he sits with his other alters, watching a film of what might be Elliot's life from here on out. Maybe. I don't know exactly what it is because it's hard to see and parse.
I thought it was like we're seeing the last 4 seasons flash before our eyes, like some of the footage of, but it could be maybe the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And then the Darlene shows back up and says, "Hello, Elliot," and
addressing us. Because I mean, that's the thing that's this is where I'm really wanting to see this YouTube video. It's going to come out 3 months from now. It's going to be 3 hours and it's going to be 11 hours and 60 minutes long.
Yeah, we're a weird meta entity. Like we are observers.
We're observers.
We have the knowledge of all of Elliot's personalities existing before Elliot does.
We're treated like an alt officially by this episode.
Yeah, so like I don't think we are Elliot, but I think that Elliot is being presented for the first time. The real reintegrated Elliot.
It's so weird because like I feel like us leaving his eyes and seeing them like brimming with tears is a better way to end that than Darlene coming and addressing us from his perspective as Elliot.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it should have like maybe zoomed out to where you see him look at Elliot or like
is she
Darlene
addressing us
hand.
or is she addressing the real Elliot who's now laying on the ground looking at her? The POV is the POV just reversed here. Like the pullout is Darlene
she is looking
at him,
right into the camera's eyes, and the camera.
But is the camera's eyes Elliot eyes?
It's both. It cannot. It has to be us as well.
Okay.
It can be Elliot Prime too, but it has to be us. It has to.
Sure.
So
I can buy
that was weird. I feel like he should have, but I don't. He might be also, and the YouTube video might outline that he's doing something really, really clever there with this POV, and you'll understand it all in the fullness of time. I don't know. It felt weird to me.
To the extent that we are an alter of Elliot, somehow the voyeuristic, like just observer angle.
Yeah.
And now all of that is reintegrated sort of into what is a real Elliot, the full Elliot.
Mm-hmm.
We would be included in that, certainly. So looking at both us and this character that is now some version of a real Elliot, whether he's like fully integrated all these personalities into one person or he's just simply, they all have equal control now. I don't know, but they could be one and the same. We could be Elliot in that scene, but only a portion of Elliot along with all the other 4 portions.
They're still watching because like they're all in the theater of his mind watching it still.
Right.
But it's like I felt like we were the ones, we left those alts behind still voyeuristically looking at them and then traveled through the tunnel of light. It's all, I mean, I don't like, look, I care very little to have this. I just say like it is weird that he went back to the POV and Darlene addressing us. It's almost like that's the other thing that had me thinking it's very dreamlike or like this is very recursive because it's starting again. Someone is addressing us, and now it's even worse. Like we're even more diluted because now we're being addressed as Elliot. I don't know.
Well, I guess there's no difference in that moment, right? Between us and Elliot, we're just a portion. The same way that the Mastermind was a portion of Elliot, we're a portion of Elliot.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I felt like there was we were still apart from the other personas. The way they framed them watching we were watching them watching, like we weren't.
But then we go into the footage itself, right? We go into the lens. We go into the view of it. We don't really get to see what they're watching.
Yeah, here's the other thing. There's also a lot of John Malkovich allusions in this a couple episodes that I've only seen Being John Malkovich once, and it was in my early 20s, and I just hated it. I hated it and I've never gone back and revisited it. So it could be like some of this stuff is like intentionally aping some things they were doing with John Malkovich. In which case,
I mean, that Christian Slater scene where everybody's Christian Slater, that's straight out of
that's what I'm saying. And it could be that like I just there's, I don't know, something visceral there I don't like, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Maybe he's just trying to say that watching a television show is relinquishing control.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is.
And if you want your fucking control, go play a video game or something.
Yeah, or go out and channel that energy into real life.
Yeah.
Be yourself.
But that's it.
Hack the system.
That's the end.
Fuck society.
Yeah, fuck society.
Well, we do have a whole feed bag full of feedback.
And I'm hungry. I'm so hungry.
There's several
got apple
alts.
cores in that feed bag.
Several alts step forward to take the slack from the Mastermind stepping by. First, Mask Never Again. This time, guys, it's not about feedback or theories. I don't have any mental health issues, but I know when Mr. Robot started, I had so many problems, but yet the series kept me going week after week, year after year. I don't think it's about the cinematography, the writing, or directing. It's about how we are feeling right now. Maybe nobody likes this ending, but for me, Mr. Robot was something. And nothing feels like this right now. I feel like I started living in 2015, and today my life reached an end, a satisfying end. For me, it's a freaking piece of art. Fuck society. So this, I got a couple takes that are kind of like this, that like, Mr. Robot did capture a certain zeitgeist, a certain feeling that a lot of us have, that something is wrong with the world, something's wrong with us, and it can be fixed by X, Y, Z. And I do feel like that this show is going to be kind of its era, in the same way that, like, you know, Taxi Driver was back in the day.
Okay.
Like, there's a certain kind of like electricity in the air that it's capturing, and it will continue to do that and kind of like be like it's what do we call this? The 20 teens. This is like peak 20 teens television.
Okay. Yeah.
So I kind of think I'm grooving on the vibe you're laying down there. Mask Never Again.
Yeah, no, I think at times this show does approach art. I think it just in its
Many
cinematic
times.
style.
Oh yeah,
It's doing a lot of artful things there, but also in its breakdown of mental illness. I think it is artfully done.
Yeah, no. And I feel like this trips me up a lot of times when I have minor issues with things that I overall love, that like, because I spend the majority of the time explaining the things that I didn't work to me and why, it seems like it's a lion's share. But like, Mr. Robot is one of the more artistically done television shows I've ever seen. And, you know, we've seen a lot of really artistically done like Breaking Bad, super artistic, Leftovers, beautiful, like every frame of painting kind of stuff. But like this, sonically, visually, acting, directing, the writing was so elevated week after week, you know, year after year, that the minor missteps, like the season two prison arc,
even that is like really going for something.
and when
That's
you look
going
back
for
in
maybe
retrospect,
the artiest part of the whole damn show.
yeah,
There's a fine line that in my enjoyment of entertainment you have to walk, and it's the line between art and utilitarian plot.
and
I think the show most of the time hit it. Season 2 was the exception.
And it's easy to see how, yes, that was some rough writing, but it paved the way for this season, because they had to establish the fact that you can have these mental prisons, that Elliot can pull the wool over our eyes, that he can tell us lies that are convincing even to himself.
Yeah.
And completely fundamentally alter his reality. So we just roll with it. Like, you know, we had a lot like that. This would be a much heavier episode had we not had season 2 to explain all that visual metaphor to us.
And I think if they hadn't tried to pack basically all of that into season 2, if they'd spread that out more and season 3 had encompassed some of that.
I think season 2 shouldn't exist. I think season 1 should have been a little bit longer, or season 3 should have been a little bit longer, and season 2 just been, you know, or you compress season 2 down to like a slightly longer prologue for season 3. But yeah, I kind of agree. But I don't know. I haven't rewatched it. Still waiting for that 11-hour, 16-minute YouTube video to explain it all to me.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Murray, whoa, what an end to this crazy ride. Possibly now a challenger to the Leftovers for my number 1 show.
Damn.
Not me. Leftovers number 1 of the bullet.
Yeah.
But I don't even know. I've seen so much great television this last decade. Doing a top 10 list would cause me physical pain.
Leftovers. Yeah, I don't know how I would do a decade of television in a single list. Top 7, I don't know, shows that you should watch or something.
Mm-hmm.
No, Leftovers is much closer to my like particular trauma than this is. I don't have any like history of physical or sexual abuse in my life, but like there's some stuff in Leftovers that hits me a lot harder, so it's always going to be my number 1 when I'm comparing it to these kind of trauma-based shows. Mr. Robot, you know, really strong performance, I thought.
Had a couple questions that they wanted answers to, or a couple commonly seen plot holes that we didn't talk about, I think, and whether they thought they were a plot hole or not. Number 1, Dom. Jason's of the opinion that seeing her fall asleep on that plane tells us that her story arc is done. She's confident her family is safe and the Dark Army doesn't care about her any longer, and she can finally sleep.
It's a DVD extra where the plane goes down.
Exactly. So, seeing this whole series, how do you feel about the airport sequence? Because I still feel like that is bizarre television.
I didn't like the tone. I didn't like the fantastical nature of it and what I now view as a true reality.
It's almost like Sam Esmail's plot, like storyboarding out season 4, and it's like, shit, I don't have a satisfying answer for Darlene or Dom. Here's an episode where...
To me, it felt like Sam was going for something. He was going for a subverted rom-com kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And for me, it just didn't work because I don't like those movies. I don't like the choice of music. I didn't like the tone clash with the rest of the show, even though in other areas I've liked the tonal clash. Like that Alf episode is great, the road trip episode.
Yeah, but like Jason says, like this...
Yeah, it just didn't work for me.
I think he's right. That we're supposed to understand this. I just don't know that the show did a great job of telling this within its weird psychological puzzle box structure. It's the one thing where
I think everybody was...
so that one episode, like 4 episodes ago, is the one thing where like Sam's like, okay, time out, everybody, we're done puzzle boxing. All right, none of this means anything. Right. It's just, and then we go right back to the puzzle boxing up until like the last 10 minutes of this particular finale. But
you got a few moments of that, and they were both like these strangely done things. Like, look at Tyrell's death, right? Tyrell's death. Everybody was like, fucking, this is not the end of Tyrell. Tyrell's coming back. Bonsoir, Elliot. I want to fucking hear it again. No, Tyrell was fucking dead in that moment. And you weren't ready to let go of that, right? And the same thing happened with Dom. People were looking for, like, there's an airplane crash. We know this has been hinted at many times.
And in both cases, Sam Esmail did things to prop up that, and had to have known that would prop up speculation.
But at the same time, I think he put a definitive stamp on it. Like, the idea that Dom falls asleep on this plane is her letting go. It's her conclusion. That's all you need to know about Dom to know that the rest of her life is going to be more pleasant than the last year has been.
Unless that was just a put on by Irv and they're going to have Dark Army
but
guys
meet her in Prague. But it's clear now that it's not, right? Or if it is,
it's unknowable.
We're not privy to that information, and so why speculate?
Point number 2, what did Tyrell see? Closely related. I took it we were supposed to think that he saw his child be happy and that it was okay to die, that he could finally relax and stop chasing some unattainable feat. Yeah, I mean, that's literally what I think is a valid thing to understand. It's just, I think there was a way, if you really want to stop doing the mystery box in these scenes, there's ways to do that. You know, like actually having Irv show up to tell them everything was okay did the opposite for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like the episode would be so much less ambiguous if they just got on to Prague and I guess this is it. We're going to make it, and, you know, like just leave Irv out of it. But third point, White Rose's machine. Was it anything? I was under the impression that we should view her as a sophisticated cult leader, one who's convinced so many people that she can really build a machine to take them to a better world. And with everything collapsing, even she believed it, much like a cult leader taking their own poison Kool-Aid. In the past, when she tested the machine, it only gave her subjects cancer. Elliot's dad, who I believe volunteered because of his guilt for abusing Elliot. Angela's mom volunteered because of the guilt she felt at sleeping with Philip. Both thought it would take them to a world where they didn't fail. I mean, yeah, those are. I think those are absolutely fine. That's the one I had the least problems with. Like White Rose, I think, yeah, she's a Jim Jones type. She believed in this paradise, and as it crashed down around her ears, she blew her head off because she really wanted to believe it.
What else could she do?
Yeah. Everything else was I don't know, but like I do wonder if she had shipped the Congo project, if it would have literally destroyed the entire world. Yeah,
I mean, I think there's still some questions around that.
Yeah,
that the show doesn't care to answer.
Yeah,
because that's not the point.
There's a
but it does leave me scratching my head in some spots, like around Angela. What did Angela see that so convinced her that this was a real thing?
There's an interesting thread that I saw where people, an early Mr. Robot or not, had gone through like the first 3 seasons in the last week, and their startling revelation is that Philip Price never lies. Like Philip Price is the Rosetta Stone of Mr. Robot. Whatever he proclaims is the literal unvarnished truth. So when he says that White Rose's machine is delusional, that she's a fanatic, that the rest of the world leaders, the rest of Deus Group are kind of laughing privately behind her back, that is the truth. that they supported her because they were collectively they were becoming richer and more powerful, but they all privately thought that she's a little cuckoo with this Congo project.
That idea that Philip doesn't lie isn't something I had picked up on, but if that's true, then yeah, I guess you could take that to the bank.
Yeah, but I know, like I said,
just don't try and deposit it as eCoin because it will all be gone.
Yeah, it will just be redistributed.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to Tom Jones, our resident therapist, who's written a couple times this season and throughout the run of the show. Just like by saying thanks to you guys for making this show more fun with your insight and predictions. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's lovely for you to notice. I look forward to keeping it going with Better Call Saul coming up here very soon. That is coming very soon.
Puzzle Box season 5 of Better Call Saul. Is it 5 or 6? I don't fucking know anymore.
Yeah, all the black and white footage takes place in another dimension.
Right.
Where everyone gets paid in Cinnabon. For my final thoughts, I'd like to zoom out and try to look at what Sam was trying to say. Finale being about humanity, an individual case study tells me the show is a personal message as opposed to some cosmic sci-fi message. And through that lens, I enjoy looking at the show as an allegory for trauma, our responses to it, and hopefully how to avoid unhealthy coping strategies. Let's look at how our characters have responded to trauma. Angela becomes gullible and willing to be manipulated to avoid the truth. Darlene runs away from Elliot because she can't handle his trauma. White Rose tries to control her pain by attempting to change her reality into a more pleasant one. And Elliot lives in denial by literally hiding information from himself so he won't have to live in a painful world. Plus, early on, he was addicted to drugs. Let me revisit something else I just thought about. Who is the persona that met Vera? It wasn't.
I assume it's
Mastermind.
Why? Why do you say that? I don't.
Because him and Mr. Robot were talking, right? Like that. Like when they were talking about who. When they realized that Darlene told them something and they didn't know it, they had this big intense fight. That wasn't Elliot Prime arguing with Mr. Robot, right? And it wasn't the mom, and it wasn't the little kid. It seems like Elliot Prime woke up and dealt with Vera. See, that's to say, I don't know if that tracks. I don't know if that tracks at all.
Not sure.
Again, I'm waiting for that YouTube video to come out. Anyway, so yeah, Elliot lives in denial by literally hiding information from himself so he won't have to live in a painful world. So between these two characters, we have manipulation, controlling behaviors, denial, and numbing behaviors all being utilized to try to avoid pain. However, as we now know, hiding from pain generally makes it worse, which is why the mastermind has to stop trying to protect the quote-unquote real Elliot by hiding the painful truth from him and step out of the way so Elliot can begin to feel his experiences and try to heal. In that respect, I found the ending absolutely beautiful and poignant reminder that sometimes we need to get out of our own way to heal and grow. I have no problem with that interpretation. It seems like it tracks to me, and I appreciate all your insights as well, Tom. Justin, for me, hands down, the most powerful scene of the finale was Darlene's confession that she knew the whole time that our Elliot was just an alter.
Yeah.
How pure that all she wanted was to be close to her brother. That said, I couldn't help but see Elliot's wheels turning when he asked her, why weren't you too close before? What does he do? And Elliot said, please tell me he's a total dick so I can justify sending his ass back to Hill Valley. Darlene says, he didn't do anything. Elliot's like, oh, he waits a day before returning text. Ah, fuck it. Anyway, I love the cast and felt this ending fitting and beautiful. Esmail was never condescending. He respected our intelligence and built a 4-tiered adventure around it all. Our nostalgia, our shared loneliness, our capitalism fatigue, and our desire to be emotionally challenged. 'Twas a perfect bookend.
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about that scene, especially from Darlene's side. Like, that idea that, you know, she left because she couldn't deal with what Elliot was dealing with. Like, she didn't know how to process that trauma. And so just, you know, in the same way, but also very different, she dealt with it the way that Elliot did, which is she ran from it. Like, Elliot ran into other personas. She just fucking took off.
Yeah.
So she didn't have to deal with his trauma, which I thought was, it was an interesting way of having that character. Like, I came to a clearer understanding of who Darlene was and why she was doing the things she was doing throughout the entire series and even before it in just a couple of seconds and a few lines. It was really good.
Yeah, I thought that scene was great too. Tom W. Absolutely love the season finale of Mr. Robot. I've been anticipating it and making sure to set aside the full 95 minutes to be entirely focused, but I ended up screwing it up by watching the episodes in the wrong order.
Oh, what the fuck?
As it turns out, works just fine. Episode 13 packed almost the entirely same punch, even with the murder of True Elliot abruptly happening right before the episode opened. But I can see it working, right?
Totally.
Because like it leaves with them like what are you doing in my apartment? Who are you? And then it starts with him boxing him up. It's like, oh, well, he just murdered him.
Right.
During
and now he's trying to take his life because it's a better life.
Yeah.
You don't get like that he kind of created that version of Elliot, but you don't need it because Krista's going to say it all later in the episode.
Right. They continue.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Everything in episode 12 was well enough implied by episode 13 that I didn't feel like I missed anything in retrospect other than why Price was at Elliot's wedding. Though I was getting back to what seemed like a perfect ending in the series, I wondered how could anything come after this. While the true episode 12 is a little more rote, already knowing exactly how this world is about, or what this world is about, I still enjoy seeing it all played out. I think that would be hilarious, is you get all the way through 13 at the tunnel of light and like, hot damn, this last episode must be amazing.
And then Elliot's stuck in a loop again, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It totally reverses the outcome of the ending.
Yeah. Oh, man. Because, you almost wish you could have a weird experience like that just to try it on.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that with us, Tom. David M. So White Rose's machine was just a tool so the S-mail could fake us out. All that buildup and speculation about the machine and what it does and doesn't work and all that speculation about the machine and what it does do and what it doesn't and will it work, but no payoff, no answers. Its only purpose was to misdirect us for the finale. Did I miss something? White Rose shot herself in the head and promised Angela was still alive. Are we supposed to just forget that and be in awe of S-mail's creative storytelling? So this is like, I think, representative of like the negative takes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think that you're supposed to understand that White Rose's machine was how a multi-billionaire, that's their unhealthy coping system.
Yeah. That's
what they do in lieu of drugs and gambling and, being an adrenaline junkie or that's their self-destructive behavior.
Right.
And, it's, it was a kind of a MacGuffin, but I mean, she really committed to it. Like the fact that there is a room in Washington Township power plant that has this old computer set up that's got the fish in it that's hooked up to a kill switch. Like, I'm pretty sure that all tracks, but it is a long way to go. It is a long way to go to the reveal that we got.
Yeah, for sure.
But the fact that she shot her, that to me, that's where, even as though I was really trying to brace myself that nothing sci-fi was going to happen, like, that's true believer, like that's Jim Jones drinking his own Kool-Aid. Yeah. And when you say it that way, that can absolutely happen. It has happened in real life, but that almost convinced me that like, oh my God, maybe this is, she genuinely believed it was going to work. This wasn't like a con.
Yeah. No, I don't think it was a con. I think it might have been a delusion, but certainly not a con.
Yeah. So, Jared W. with some closure on something we'd been wondering about the last few weeks. They went back and watched and says, I think there's been some curiosity and confusion about whether Darlene knew about the abuse Elliot suffered. And during a season 2 rewatch this week, one piece of dialogue stood to make it pretty clear that she didn't. This isn't a flashback. So this isn't a flashback where she shows up to watch the careful massacre of the bourgeoisie right before Elliot first explains the scheme to take down E-Corp. Her insinuation that her mom was unfairly cruel to their dad suggests that she thinks he was just a normal, good dad who died when she was very young and not a monster. The dialogue goes as follows. Darlene, do you still see mom? Elliot, not really. You? Darlene, fuck no. She still shits on dad every time I talk to her. I wish I remembered him better. Also, according to grave markers.
Wait, how does that insinuate anything?
Well, okay, so if she knew that Elliot's father sexually abused him, she wouldn't be like, I don't know why she shits on dad all the time,
Yeah.
And also, according to Edward's grave marker and Darlene's FBI files and her date of birth, she was only like 4 years old and 3 months when Edward died. And that's right at the hazy, like you might remember a memory or two. You probably remember your brother swinging a baseball bat at your dad and then jumping out the window, but you're not going to remember a lot of context around that. So I think
so does that
this is pretty compelling that she didn't know about the abuse.
Does that imply that she took off, that she found out about it later and took off because she didn't know how to deal with it? Because like that scene in the hospital implies to me that she did at some point know about it, and she left because she didn't know how to process that trauma that Elliot was working through.
You could be right.
Or she didn't know exactly what his trauma was. She just knew that he was having a hard time and she didn't know how to help him.
That was my interpretation, that not only he's having a hard time, but his behavior is so bizarre. Like, setting server rooms on fire, dude. Like, you just think about all the self-destructive behavior that we've seen him do in this season. Like, if Darlene had gone through everything, and we see that Darlene had damage and panic attacks, but like she seemed like she was the quote-unquote sane one. And like, she's fairly young, she went through the same experience, but she's not as off skew as her brother, and like I could see her as her own form of coping mechanism, just disconnecting from all that. Like, I have a crazy family, Elliot's part of the crazy family, and fuck all of them. So
okay.
And like I said, you put it that way, it's not a irrational decision to pull back from those crazy people. Mate, I think is how you pronounce his name. It could be Matey. It could be Mati. I don't know. There's a lot of diacritic marks on this name.
Oh boy.
But I'm gonna go with Mate.
Okay.
And hopefully I didn't butcher it too bad. Has some general and specific praise that I think we've already kind of covered about their feelings about the series and this episode in particular. But as someone who both loved the show and the finale, they have some lingering questions for us. They want to know, are you genuinely happy with how everyone's character stories were concluded?
Yes.
I think when I'm talking about the big when I'm talking about Darlene and Elliot, yes. You start getting like Dom
Angela.
Pretty much.
Angela, so I've never liked Angela as a character. I thought she's been just really weirdly written, especially in season 2, and season 3 was no different. So yeah, I don't like her character. I don't feel like it was concluded well either.
Can I tell you something? Now that I've seen the whole series, I think I'm on board with you. Like, really? I liked Angela because I thought she had some weird charisma, and I thought what she was doing was very interesting. I actually liked her the most in season 2 when she went into like her white robe, slippers, like covering everyone's faces with electrical tape kind of thing. Like, I thought that was going to lead up to something, and it didn't. Like, she was essentially a MacGuffin. I feel like I've used that word a lot. She's essentially a MacGuffin of why Elliot's keeping fighting in this season. Yeah. Like, to avenge her death. And, then she's a fantasy carrot to keep the real Elliot occupied in a dream world. So I think her, as vital as she was to the narrative in the beginning seasons, I don't think they did her justice. But then everybody else, like, Mr. Robot's never real. Right, all the other people are dead. Like I think
White Rose's conclusion, when contextualized properly, is fantastic.
Yes,
I think Philip Price's conclusion is fantastic. I think the number one character I want to hear you talk about is Tyrell.
No, I don't.
I know you have strong feelings about Tyrell.
The Wellix, I hate him. I hate him, and I think I'm going to always hate him. I don't understand what role they served in the narrative, other than to again be another example of maladaptive coping strategies. Because they collectively had a bushel of them. Yeah,
it does seem like a 4-season arc that amounts essentially to a stepping stone for Elliot along the way to like sort of open back up a little bit.
Yeah, and I did. I think that Sam Elliott had all the answers contained in his mustache.
Yeah, go to Sam Elliott's blog.
He had all the
he had unraveled this mystery long before anyone else.
I think Sam Esmail obviously had a lot of this sketched out from the beginning, but I don't think he had every single plot line. Like, I don't think he knew what he's going to do. I don't think he knew that there's a character named Irv. I don't think this taxiderm. Like some of this stuff.
There isn't time in a 2-hour movie for.
He had a coloring book, and then he colored in the pages as each season went past. And I think some of this stuff is just like, I think Tyrell was supposed to be like the dark version of Elliot and kind of the big bad, and then he was subverted to be an ally, and then he became like an emotional sounding board and a mirror. But I don't think any of it quite worked. So yeah,
I think I agree. I agree with that in retrospect. I agree with that for like the earlier Tyrell stuff. I think as we progressed, like especially in season 4, I think there was a little bit more point to Tyrell as a character, but it was such a long journey to get there, and so much of it seemed almost unnecessary. Like you could have made this point much more concisely.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like I think there's elements here and there that I liked, but like to me, his character was just weaving lane to lane, switch. Sometimes going down one-way streets reverse, and like that just feels the by far the messiest of the important character arcs.
Yeah.
But a lot of people dug him, so what do I know? Part 2, Mate wonders, are we mad or frustrated there are still questions will never be answered, such as what Elliot did after 5/9 and those missing 3 days? There's definitely, and I've laid out a lot of points where I think SML did leave a couple of holes or some unanswered questions. Maybe they're answered if you watch everything again with fresh eyes. The answers just aren't immediately obvious to me, and I also don't know that I like answers that you have to go back and watch 40 more hours of television to get everything to, but
okay.
I'm not mad.
I feel you on that. So I think a non-answer can be an answer. And I think in the case of like White Rose, the non-answer is the answer. The fact that they don't go all sci-fi, that they don't show this machine, it should be telling us that this was a delusion,
right?
That this was something that she bought into.
And you had multiple characters in a position to know authoritatively say that yes, from my insider position, this is all nonsense and bullshit. And
they could have subverted that, and they could have given us more, and they could have said, "Here's the machine, here's what it does, and it works or it doesn't work," but they didn't. And so to me, that says that isn't the question. You're asking the wrong question. What is the machine? And they do that with a couple of other characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big questions, getting a non-answer to me has sort of forced me to recontextualize the questions I was asking in the first place.
Okay. Point the third. Do you think Tyrell is dead?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Point 4. Do you plan on rewatching the show now that you know all the mysteries that the show contains?
No. 100%.
You guys said it could be potentially the most rewarding rewatch in TV history. I agree, but we have lashed ourself to this ship, and this ship is all about weekly television shows and immediate takes and turning it around fast. It's not about like going back and being the exhaustive, definitive post hoc look at a show. And if Bald Move is an outfit that did 2 or 3 YouTube videos a month, then my February or my January would be obsessively going through every frame and ripping things to make a YouTube video to be sure to be demonetized because USA would put a claim to it about all these things. But like that's just not what we do. And like if I was just a fan and this is the only show I was excited about, yes. And If I don't blame anyone for doing that, because I bet it would be rewarding. And maybe when we can slow down at some point, I would do it again. But
I got no fucking time to rewatch 4 seasons of a show because I got 4 seasons of other shows coming up. They're brand new, and man, I haven't played through Control yet. I got a lot of video games on my stack too.
Yeah, I got to get through. Yeah, I'm trying to watch the Expand. There's like it's not going to stop. Like if people would if the world would stop and I could do it, but I can't.
Blame Netflix.
Let's see. Number 5. What are your thoughts about the whole of season 2 now that the show's over? Did that season change your perspective on it?
Nah.
Like I said, I can see that it was necessary because you have to tell that story about the visual, like the metaphoric prison. So that so you can do that, and then you can do all that heavy lifting now, so that the finale works. But I think season 2 certainly
it was a lot of concentrated heavy lifting, and
but also lots
artsy.
of filler too, because I felt like that's the one thing that needed to be told in season 2, and everything else was justifying its existence.
I don't really dislike all the pieces. I just don't like the way they fit together.
Yeah, and the internet and us doing this as a job kind of ruined it, because I've heard multiple times that people on like a binge kind of watch, like season 2 just goes down like fucking chocolate sundae.
Sure.
But when you're trying to figure out what the fuck it's doing week to week, it was a frustrating watch. Number 6, what's your favorite season and favorite individual episode of the show?
4 has been fucking amazing. I
think
would have said
argument
3 last season, but just the scope of what they've done with 4, some of those performances, some of the different ways. Like, yes, there are standout episodes that I don't like. that Dom and Darlene, that Domlene episode is like, okay, but they did so much interesting, cool stuff. They had the biggest hacks of the entire series in this season. I think this has been a great season.
I think season 3 is my favorite.
Yeah,
because it's everything that season 4 had. Its gimmicky episode, its one take episode was better than this gimmicky episode. The
no dialogue,
the no dialogue episode. The season finale or the series finale was good, but I don't think great. And I wanted it to be more mind blowing than it was. And I thought that the setup for season 3 subverted, like I remember the finale of season 3 did such a great job of like paying off the time travel motifs without actually doing the time travel. That actually was like impressive. Like that changed, that was the thing that ultimately changed my mind about Sam Esmail as a creator. And you know, I just think this is a consistently solid, excellent season of television. And season 4 approaches that. And if it had just a oh fuck kind of series finale, I think it would have been better.
Oh yeah.
But as it is, I think season 3 is a little bit more enjoyable for me.
Okay.
For me. And then what about favorite episode? Because it's either the Alpha episode or the one shot episode. Because that one shot episode of the big hack reversal was just one of the most exciting things I've seen on television ever.
Yeah, storming the E-Corp building.
And using that not as a showy technique, but as a way to build tension and like stakes and a ticking time. Like it is great. And the Alf episode.
Yeah, that was a super memorable episode. The road trip episode, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, it almost justifies season 2's existence.
And I bet it's better in retrospect.
Yeah, I bet.
A lot better.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I bet now. Knowing
that,
now,
I might actually go back and watch just that one episode to recontextualize it.
Back to his point before about rewatching. The thing is, I've watched like 3 hours of YouTube of just like compilations of like previous scenes, and you know,
half this episode was that.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but
yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I think you can't overlook 407 for what the Vera Krista Elliot episode. That episode is so fucking good. And say what you want about its structure as sort of a 3-act or 5-act play, whatever the hell it was. The acting alone makes that one of the best pieces of television I saw this year, period.
Yeah.
Let alone the best of this series. And those 3 episodes would probably be in my top 2.
Yeah, that was as well. You're right. The performances and the writing. I had my problems with some of how arty it got, but like, the performances are amazing. Yeah. And then finally, what was the significance of Unreal Tyrell shooting Elliot and trying to bury him? I just want to hear your interpretation.
Fuck me if I know, man.
I think it's just Mr. Robot fighting. Like this is like Agent Smith and Neo fighting in the reality of their mind. You know, but
this is not the Tyrell of that universe either, right? Like that's the other thing.
Well, neither was Angela. None of these people, like that's like, I think the
true.
reveal is when you're at the wedding rehearsal and all of Elliot's friends and like they're all just these faceless people. They're all
it goes off the rails.
Yeah, like it's like you just that expose the facade that the Angela's not real. Yeah, Tyrell's not real. They're all you in some way, which is why fake Elliot or like real Elliot could hear what fake Elliot was saying because they're literally the same mind space. No, I think it's just it's just Mr. Robot. This whole episode, the last 2 episodes, was Mr. Robot's plan to show Elliot, Mastermind Elliot, what he's done and why it has to stop. And that is the answer to most of these weird questions. It's just Mr. Robot trying to do something. So that is how we are going to leave Mr. Robot. I'm sure there'll be lots more to say on the subject. There'll be lots more digital ink spilled. They're still having a grand old time with the rewatch party over on r/Mr. Robot and in some sections of our forums. And I will probably follow along with that at a distance. But this is our coverage. I imagine that Mr. Robot will probably make some noise in the Baldies. That's our annual award show.
I mean, if not the show itself, the actors certainly. We'll be the Golden Globes here. We'll ignore the show and just give Rami the award.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing directing, writing, characters, the performances. What do you think of the show? I didn't care for it. But yeah, no. So the Baldies We Don't Know is the annual award show that we do in late January of every year, where we look back at the last year of television and movies, and we talk about the performances, and we give our stupid little rewards for. I could see it's going to be another couple weeks in the future. Maybe there'll be some things that there'll be kind of new nuggets that we come out with. But yeah,
all that's on the Bald Move TV feed. If you're not subscribed to that, check that out. That's coming up sooner than I think.
Yes,
it's almost January already, and that'll be late January. So
yeah. But I do appreciate everyone that's been on. I know we didn't cover this in season 1. We did do some Bald Move television stuff on it.
Right.
But thank you for everyone that's been on this 3-year journey with us.
Yeah, what a bummer. Our first season covering it was the
season 2
worst season of the
we
show.
really got off on the wrong foot with that show. Show, but I think we recovered. Like the show itself, we recovered nicely, and we'll be having lots of stuff to talk about in the new season. I know we are going to continue taking a look at The Expanse, which came out a couple weeks ago. I'm halfway done with the season and loving it. There's Picard. We're big Star Trek fans.
Yeah,
we will be getting science fiction. There will be sci-fi elements to Picard.
Nope.
Just a mystery box.
Riker's got this machine he built, and it's all
about Counselor Troy coming to grips with the many times she was psychically raped in the Star Trek episodes and movies. Yeah.
Oh no.
She's got a persona for every time it happens, so there's like 7 or 8 of them.
The show is called Mr. Data, and it's all just Data petting cats. I don't know.
It's funny that a show about Data would not be called Mr. Robot. It's called Mr. Data. But we'll be talking about that. We also got Better Call Saul and so many more shows coming back next year, and new shows we don't even know. Don't even know. Maybe we'll get another Watchmen in 2020. I doubt
another
it. But
Chernobyl.
maybe.
Another.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Follow along.
Nothing ever ends.
At Bald Move on all the social medias. If you want to keep abreast with that. And have a great and happy new year. Enjoy the last of 2019 and ring in 2020 in a safe and happy and successful manner. And we'll see you when we see you. Bonsoir, friendo.